thoughts on this. And if you're the Browns and they decide to go Dylan Gabriel in the third round, I know you did a ton of coverage over the week, and then they go Shedeur Sanders in the fifth round, 2 running backs, trade out of the Travis Hunter pick. Sounded like there was a lot of cooks in the kitchen in terms of who was drafting what. From a general manager's perspective who has had drafts before, give us a sense of what you think happened in that Browns war room over those 3 days.
Yeah, I think they had an A-plus draft. I think, Mike, you'll be happy. I think it was a draft for the ages.
Woo!
And talked about it on First Take today. I think their best quarterback is Shedeur Sanders. I think he should start on opening day. I think you keep either Flacco or Pickett as the backup and let the other 2 guys fight it out. And Shedeur Sanders has more talent than Dylan Gabriel. I don't think there's any question about that. You know, you think about getting Mason Graham, who I think is going to be a really good defensive tackle. Just right on down the line, Carson Schlesinger should be a good player. Quinshon Johnson, Dilton Sampson, Harold Fannin. But I think all that pales in comparison to having Jacksonville's one next year guys. When you're picking in the top 5 and you have a quarterback, that means you have a massive amount of holes. And I think Travis Hunter is going to be a really good player, but Cleveland sitting there with that one next year, that's going to be the best thing that they do. I'm telling you, that could be a really, really high pick in a draft that could have a tremendous amount of quarterbacks.
Mike, is there a world we live in where it's going to be firm handshakes on both sides? Because a lot of these trades, partner, don't work out for at least one team. But is this a case where there could be firm handshakes on both sides for Jacksonville and Cleveland when it's all said and done in a few years?
Where both sides feel good about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Travis Hunter is going to be a really good player. But look, if the 3 of us were running a team, you'd hear this every day. It's a constrained system. You only have so many picks. You only have so many dollars. And when you give up so much for one player, and I think he will be transformational, I just think that's a lot. And one of the things, too, is you got to remember, these guys are just getting there. They don't even know their roster well. What happens, if Cleveland could draft, the next Myles Garrett, ironically, or let's say Shedeur Sanders becomes Kirk Cousins and somebody wants Lenore Sellers of South Carolina, and they turn that 1-1 into 3-1s. My point is, you just don't know what's going to happen. And I just think it's really good business what the Browns did.
Now, Mike, one more thing. Is this a case where the Browns aren't going to be looking for a quarterback next year with that pick, or are they going to be looking for a quarterback with that pick? Because obviously you get Shedeur in the 5th round, great value, but next year we keep hearing, it's a great quarterback draft. Did the Browns find their franchise quarterback in Sanders, in your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, that's the nice part. It's a grade of incomplete. We don't know. Okay. That's why I would like Gabriel and Sanders play. And then at the end of the year, I just don't know why you'd be, playing a 40-year-old Joe Flacco.
Mike, you mentioned James Gladstone, the new general manager of the Jacksonville Jaguars, who paid a hefty price. I'm a Jags fan. I understand. I see both sides. Paid a hefty price to go get Travis Hunter. It was a bit of a half-court heave, if you will, and then he was very dramatic in the introductory press conferences. He's made a name for himself early on, I assume, amongst the general manager circles. I'm sure you probably have more of a sense of it than I do. If you're a general manager in that position and you're kind of making your name known, I guess you're starting to develop a bit of a reputation. How do those reputations work with sort of how these GMs draft? You kind of know how they operate, right? Once you're sitting in these draft rooms, I know it changes year in and year out, but all right, Jacksonville's going to act like this. Andrew Berry might draft like that. Give me a sense of how general manager, reputations develop through draft periods.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be known as someone who's extremely aggressive. Now, if it works out, it'll be aggressive. If it doesn't, it'll be reckless. That's just a lot to give up. You could go back in my career. I was aggressive, traded up, went after Brett Favre and countless others, very aggressively. I think there's a time and place to do that. I don't think that's in year one. I don't think that's with a future one when you're dealing with a non-quarterback. You don't know, Trevor Lawrence may be an MVP candidate, or Liam Cohen at the end of the year may say, we can't win with this guy. And now all of a sudden, they love Arch Manning, and they have the 2nd pick in the draft.
They can't get
Guess
him.
what?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the Cleveland Browns. And let's say, again, best case scenario for Cleveland is Shedeur turns out to be, again, a BB+, which I think based on how he played, he certainly could be. And, if you're a Browns fan, the game you're looking at every week this season, you're looking at the Browns and the Jaguars opponent. Those are your two favorite teams this year.
Do you think it's a general manager's talking about the actual pre-draft meetings? And, he didn't rub me the right way. He didn't rub him the right way. He allegedly didn't rub the Giants and Brian Dable the right way. General managers, I assume, talk about this type of thing when you're at the combine, when you're at pro days, whatever it might be. And all of a sudden that it has to have something to do with the fact that he dropped. In your eyes, with somebody with experience in these circles, as a former front office guy yourself, is this a bunch of teams kind of talking, sort of developing a consensus conclusion that they don't want to deal with this, and that's why Shedeur dropped?
Yeah, look, the pre-draft process is like an interview. And one of the questions I would ask somebody when they came in for an interview is, take me through your process for this job interview. And look, we don't know what happened because we weren't in the rooms, but I think it is fair to say that, look, based on the film, he was a guy that could have been in the low first, second round pick. The fact that he went in the fifth round, obviously there was some disconnect in the process, which is too bad. But with that said, that's now ancient history, and this is the beginning of his career, not the end of it.
Do you see him putting his nose to the ground and working hard in Cleveland, Mike, or do you see a distraction looming?
Yeah, I'm hoping it's the hard work.
Right.
I said this earlier to Steve A. Smith. I said, look, he should, Saturday night, he should have been calling all the skilled players. Call David Njoku, call Jerry Jeudy, call your offense linemen, let them hear from you that I'm here to work, I'm here to get better, I'm here to get coached. What happened doesn't really matter. Kirk Cousins beat out RG3. One was a 1, one was a 4. Brock Purdy beat out Trey Lance. One was a 1, one was a 7. Just we're the ultimate meritocracy.
I think it's a slice of humble pie, Mike. I think it's a slice of humble pie for Shedeur, and I don't think Dion was completely clean of things either. Remember, all the way back, he said they pull an Eli Manning, but I think it's not about when you get drafted. It's about what you do with the opportunity, and I kind of lead towards with you now. As far as I wanted to flip it a little bit to the Dolphins with Quinn Ewers, is Mike, Tua has had it, obviously his share of injuries and concussions and whatnot. Is this a viable backup for Tua here in Miami if God forbid something happens to him?
Well, I think it's Zach Wilson, right, in year one. And I think, Miami's smart, bring in Zach Wilson, see what you have there. And then where's Quinn Ewers in a year?
Right. But Mike, I think we know what we have in Zach Wilson. No. I don't, you know what I mean? I feel like they made that pick to possibly be all right, we're going to play him probably at some point this year. God forbid something happens to Tua, and maybe we strike gold.
If he's going to be a third-round pick, a QB3, they're not going to play him this year. I'd be surprised, right?
Yeah. Well, look, here's what I say about that. Zach Wilson hasn't worked out yet. That's clear. Neither is Kenny Pickett, former first-rounders. But if the three of us were talking a year ago, you look at Geno Smith, you look at Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold, right, and those three guys each thrived in their fourth team.
Interestingly enough, maybe something about McDaniel's offense clicks with Wilson if it ever comes to that point. Mike, I want to get two things from you here, and before we shift off of the draft. Number one, you mentioned that you think the Browns had an all-star draft, star-studded draft, A++. Give me another team that you thought had a very underrated, very good draft, and I'm curious on another perspective here. Give me a team that you think had a very surprising draft in terms of the directions they went. Go ahead.
Yeah, I thought New England filled a lot of holes. I thought they had a good offseason, getting just really starting at the top with Will Campbell. They weren't going to go into the season with Darian Lowe at left tackle, so I think that one was pretty easy. But just getting Travion Henderson, getting I really like this Kyle Williams from Washington State. He can run. He was the fastest receiver at the Senior Bowl. He did have 8 drops. That needs to get better. The biggest surprise, on the other hand, was Atlanta trading up, giving up a future one for James Pierce. That really stunned me, guys.
And the Rams are the beneficiary of that. Rams